Hi and welcome, and in this section I want to talk about point source drip irrigation. And by point source I'm just talking about probably the most typical form of drip irrigation, where you're running a feeder tube from your half-inch line directly to an individual plant. And with point source, that's exactly what we're doing. We are watering those individual plants. And there's pros and cons to using this type of application. I think that for container plantings, point source irrigation, drip irrigation is ideal. You've got a confined space, you know exactly what you're watering, and you know that the roots are going to be contained within that pot, within that urn. Out in the landscape, point source drip irrigation has been used for a long time. It's what I started with. And the cons to this are that we go out, we put the system in, and the plants are going to grow over time. But very seldom is the drip system modified to grow as well. Meaning I'm going to come back and either move those drip emitters out to where they're at a more optimum location for the absorption of the roots for the water, or I'm going to add additional drip emitters to the system, which potentially could overtax the system. I could end up having more water being applied than the design capacity, than the amount of water I have available. So there's issues with point source that I don't really care for. But since it is good for small plants, it's good for sparse plantings in the landscape, then I'm just going to give a quick mock-up here on the board and show how this goes together. So as we're looking at the board, I've got a bunch of stuff here, and I've got some half-inch drip tubing. This is solid, no built-in emitters, and a couple of ways to work with this. Some folks will take their drip emitters. This is a half-gallon per hour pressure compensating emitter, just like the one I took apart and showed when I was kind of showing the anatomy to this. And they'll put the drip emitter directly on the tubing and then take their distribution tubing, 1/4 inch, and compress it onto the emitter and run it out to where the plant is. I actually prefer, if I'm going to do, whether it's point source or inline, I prefer to bury the tubing. I think it's safer that way. It's not going to get deteriorated by the sunshine. It doesn't have to be under a bedding of mulch all the time. It doesn't have to be stapled down with metal staples to hold it in place. So I've always tended to bury it. The plus is, yes, it's better protected. The con, or the downside, is that if you don't remember where you buried this tubing, if you haven't done an as-built, then you're going to have an issue on down the line if you want to add on to it, or if you have some repairs that need to be made. So here we have this. To do a quick mock-up, I have a punch, and I will take this punch and just probably hear that little pop. And so it puts a small hole into it. The back of the punch has a spot where I can anchor this in. That didn't go very well, did it? So I'm just going to take this, pop it into place. Now I have what's called a transfer barb. Now I will take my 1/4 inch distribution tubing, compress that onto it, and now I'll run this tubing on over to where my plant is. What I want to do is either have the water on while I'm doing the original punch on the half-inch tubing, or I'm going to turn the water on after I've run all of my distribution tubings to where I know water is actually flowing. I've made connection into the channel inside the half-inch, and I know it's flowing. I can put the emitter on, and I can see it working. I don't want to put the whole thing together and then go turn it on. If there was dirt in the line, any kind of debris just from sitting in the shop, it's going to clog up that emitter. I want to flush out the line. I want to have it charged up and put it in. When I'm placing the emitters, I'm not going to place the emitter, this is green, it looks like a plant. I'm not going to place the emitter right at the root, the stem of the plant, at the crown. I'm going to take it and set it out at the edge. I want it to be about at the edge of the root ball if it's a 1-gallon plant, or halfway between the stem and the root ball if it's a 5-gallon plant or larger. And I'm going to do 2 of these per plant. So if I've got this guy here, I'm going to have a second tubing over on this side of my plant. I want to get even water distribution. If I make a mistake, we have what are called goof plugs, and here's one installed right here. You punch a hole, you realize that, oh, there is no plant there, or I didn't need this. Then these little things, goof plugs, they just pop in the same way the transfer barb did, and it plugs up that hole. Or I can put it out at the end of the tubing. If the plant dies or I decide I don't want a plant there, I can pop this off. I can use a pair of inexpensive tubing cutters like these and just cut that off, and then I can pop a goof plug into that and plug up that emitter. So that's kind of a quick overview of point source drip irrigation and how you mock it up and put it together. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about inline or line source drip irrigation, which I do believe is a superior way to go and a much more maintenance-free way to go with drip irrigation. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.